And hello everyone, welcome back to another Love2D tutorial. This will be your final Love2D tutorial. However, to all of you who made it all the way here to the very last video, well done. You have all done such a great job getting here. And with one last step, you can finally continue on your road to being a game developer. Now before we continue, because I know a lot of you probably missed out a few pieces of code here or might not know what to do after you finish this, you could skip this part if you want to because it's not that important. But here we can just bring this over. So all of the code is on GitHub and this link will be in the description. So if you miss anything, you can just go here and you'll be able to find it. All of the code we have up until now. Now when you go into Lua and then into Love2D, you'll have the Asteroids game folder and that's what we are building. And we are at number 15, so you can get number 14's code if you have fallen behind or if you just want to get a few things that we'll get to in a second. Once you finish this course and you don't know what game to build next, I do have a few things I want you to try and do on your own. And also point a few out during the gameplay whilst I show you what we're implementing, what you could also add. So here is a lot of things called homework. And you don't have to do this, but if you do this, you will learn how to build a game on your own without my help, which is very useful because I won't always be there to hold your hand while we code a game together. Sometimes you'll have to do that on your own. And this is where it can start. There's a lot of things you can do. Create a settings page. Because if we look here, we have a settings button, but it doesn't do anything. So you can implement that settings page. That's what I want you to do. You can add more sound effects, which we'll be doing in this video. You can add a better design to the menu. Add mobile support, add items to the game. So let's say you want to give your player better guns. So let's say after every third asteroid they destroy, maybe a random gun will spawn that they can, if they hit it, then instead of exploding, they will equip the gun and then they can shoot better lasers than what they currently have. Which could help them, like once they get to like level 500, if they have a very powerful gun, it could be an easy game. You can add more enemies because currently it's very basic. But you could add, like in the original game, an UFO that will occasionally also jump in and maybe shoot the player or just try and hit him. And then you should also try and destroy that UFO. You can improve the performance because currently it's not really focused on performance. If you have a very powerful PC, you won't even notice it. But after this tutorial, if you have a low-end PC, you might notice frame drops going till 30 FPS, if not lower. And last but not least, or not yet, but you can also add a better pause screen. And then last but not least, you can add multiplayer support. This is something that can bring you very far in the future. You can go and get yourself a Lua module, a Love2D module, or just Lua module, and you can start trying to code your game that two people on two different computers can try and play the game together. It's going to be a very difficult thing to do, but if you get this right, you can make any game and you can make it multiplayer for more people to play together. And the multiplayer game is usually a bit more successful than the single player games because multiplayer games you can play with your friends. So here's a bunch of things you can do and we'll go through a few extras in the video as well. Now in this video we'll be adding background music and sound effects. I want you to go here to our GitHub page, go to number 15, which is the last one. Then you'll notice here inside of source, we now have a new folder called sounds. Go into sounds and here you'll also find all of the sounds we will be using in the tutorial. And you can just open all of them. And then you'll notice there's a download button and you can just download them all. So you click download. And did it start the download? Yes, there it goes, it downloads. And just download all of them until you have all of the sounds. There you go. Once you have all of this, we can just move this back to a different screen. We can then open up our file manager, and here under source, we can create a new folder called sounds. And we can then go here to downloads, where our things should be, and we can just copy all of the sounds we just got, and we can just throw them in here into the sounds folder. And there you go. Now you might have to rename a few of them because the names are now incredibly long and tedious. So let's just go here. There we go. Oh, I didn't do anything. There we go, okay. Let's just rename all of them. Alright, now you'll notice we have two types of sounds here. First we have OGG and MP3. This is just to show you can use multiple sound types. But usually you'd find people using OGG and MP3. And a lot of people also use WAV or WAV. Now I just chose OGG because I think that's what I got when I downloaded these here. You can also play them if you want to. I would play them, but I don't think you'll actually hear it now that I think about it. Alright, so I quickly fired up a different screen recorder, so if the quality might be a little bit low, that is just because I'm using OBS instead of my simple screen recorder as usual. Now, we can actually hear how this sounds. So if we actually go here and just say open containing folder, we can hear how all of these sounds. So the background music. Yeah, then we have the explosion asteroid. So that's when an asteroid explodes. Then when the player explodes. And of course you could change these sounds to be something else. I just went online, did a quick Google search for free music or free sounds, and I just downloaded the first one I saw. So you could definitely change this if you want. That's how laser will sound. Then an option select, like selecting a button. Then the thruster. Then the thruster but louder. Yeah, I couldn't remember why I had both of these, but we'll try and find out right now. Alright. So now we have the sounds. Next up, we can go to components and create a new file called sfx for sound effects .lua. And like usual, this will go local love is equal to require love. And we have our function sfx, which will return a table, and you can just return sfx. Alright, so first we probably want to select the background music. So let's go up here and we say local BGM, or local BGM is equal to love.audio.new source. And remember, if you're wondering about any of this, this is on the Love2D documentation. So just go to love2d.org, I think, and then you'll find the documentation which explains this as well. Then we should select the background music. Now we can say src, then sounds, and then bgm.mp3. So src, sounds, bgm.mp3. So we just selected it. And then we want to set the mode to stream. Stream is when you have long audio tracks, like background music, for example, that's going to continuously play for a long time. So let's say it's 30 seconds or longer. You probably want to use a stream. Cool. Then you want to go BGM, or go to the next line, BGM colon set volume, because the volume will be very loud, but you could change this depending on how you like it. And I'm going to set mine to 0.1, which would be very soft. But the volume will be very loud, but if you want it louder, you could make it louder by just increasing this number. Then BGM set looping to true, and this will make sure it loops continuously over and over. So once the background music ends, after it's like 30 seconds or whatnot of playing, it will start playing it again. Cool. You might think this is annoying, but a lot of games actually do this, where you just play the background music over and over and over again, and usually people don't find it too annoying unless the background music itself is an annoying tune. Cool. Now we want to link all of our effects, so all our sound effects. So you can go local, effects, and this will be a table just to make things easier. It doesn't have to be a table, but I'm going to make it one. I'm going to copy this line of code, just remove the local, change BGM to ship, explosion, and make that equal to everything here, but we're going to change this to this explosion player .ogg, and we're going to change from stream to static, because static is better for these shorter audio tracks, like that's 5 seconds long or 10 seconds long. If there's very short, then static would be better. We can then just add a comma here and then copy paste it 4 times. There we go. Then this can be asteroid instead of ship. And then of course we just change from explosion player to asteroid. Keep it static, whatnot. Then this we can change to the laser. And here I'm spelling it with an S, because here I figured out you actually spell laser with an S and not a Z. So just in case you want to know. But if you want to stay consistent, because if you linked your laser with a Z, you could change that to Z. And then here we say laser. Here we can call this select. And then option select. And then thruster. Which will of course be thruster but loud. So if you think the thruster is too loud, you could probably go for normal thruster. But this is just for making it a little bit louder, because I think this normal thruster is probably a little soft. Cool. Now first, when we play an effect, we should have a true or false value to say if an effect has been played. So fx for effect, and then played. We make that equal to false, because by default nothing is being played. Then set fx played, and this will basically just set this fx here to true or false. You don't have to use a function for it, but I'm going to use a function for it because it's just a bit safer. We're gonna go function self and then has played, and then just self dot s for fx played equal to has played. Now we want to create a function to play the background music when we want it to. So we can just go here and say play BGM for background music. That's a function, takes in self, and we can check if not BGM is playing. So if the background music is not being played, then end. So this right here just checks if the background music is currently being played. So if it's going dee 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 in the background, then BGM play. So if it's not playing, we want to start playing the background music. Cool. Now we need 2 more functions. First one is to play the effects. So if we want to play a sound effect, and then the other one is to stop a sound effect from playing. So let's first do stop sound effect, because that's the easiest one. You can say function takes in self and then the effect. Then if effects, and then we want to pass in the effect. So this right here will go to the effects and see if we pass in like a ship explosion string or an asteroid explosion. And then it will try and select that one to see if it currently is playing. Which if it is playing, then you want to stop the effect from playing. So you can just copy this and then say stop. As simple as that, and that will stop the background music from playing. Next up is to actually play the effect. Now playing the effect is a bit more complex because we have so many effects. We can just say play fx is equal to a function that takes in self, the effect we want to play, and in the mode we want to play it in. And I'll explain this in a second. Now, we will have 3 different modes. We'll have single, and the single mode is when we only want this effect and no other effects to play. Then we have slow mode, and this will just play the effect as normal. And then we have the else, which will just stop this effect from playing if it's already playing, and then start playing it again. Alright, so let's implement that. So if mode is equal to single, and it might sound a little bit confusing right now, but you'll understand what I mean in a second. Then if not self.fx played, then, so if the effect is not being played right now, then self:set fx played to true, so we want to set it to true, and then if not effect currently is playing, then we want to go effects at effect play, and this will play the effect for us. So basically this is in the sound effect that's only allowed to be played once. That's why it's single. Next up, we want to do the slow mode. So else if mode is equal to slow, then if not effect, so the current effect is not being played, then effect, and then play. Now, usually you don't actually have to do it like I'm doing right here. It's just I like to have a little bit of variety in my effects. They shouldn't all just be generic. There should be like different versions of it. For example, single, where it's only allowed to be played once. Slow, where it's allowed to be played, but we first check if it's currently being played, then we can play it again. And then finally, last but not least, where we'll stop the effect and start playing it again. Okay, that can be any other command other than slow. So else and single, of course. Self stop fx, and it will stop the effect, like just like here. And we can just say effect, and then effects at effect, and then play it. Cool. And that is the sound effects file. It could be much bigger, but I like to keep it a little bit simple for right now, because you might want to expand on this later, and you don't want it to be too complex. So let's start by going to the main.lua file. And here in reset, we can just go sound effects is equal to sound effects to create a new sound effect object. And of course, we should import it. You can either use dot or slash notation. As you can see, I use both of them here as an example. So sfx, and we can just go to components dot sfx. Now, when we load the game, we want to start playing the background music. So we can just go sfx and then play BGM, and it will start playing the background music for us. Cool. And let's play our game and see what we get. And as you can see, we get background music playing for us now. Alright. So that is for the background music. Next up, let's go to the menu here, and let's just pass in sound effects for all 3 of these. SFX, because we're going to add sound effects to all 3 of them. And we just change the player lives to 3. Player also has another player object being created here, so we can just pass in SFX here again. There we go. And we'll later on change that in the player itself. Now first, let's go to menu, which should be here in states. And first we can take in the sound effect, so SFX. And then here where we go to run, when we check if the button is being hovered on. If it is being hovered, then you want to go sfx colon play, or play, and then fx for the sound effect. And you can say we want to play the select and single. Alright, so it should be able to run if it's not going to crash because of those nil values. As you can see, it kind of plays. However, we need to also add another line of code right here inside of the else statement. So if self.focused, so the one is currently focused on, is the same as the name, then we can go sfx set fx played to false. Because if you could remember, if we go here to sfx and we go to single, then here it sets it to true, but here we check if it's already false. Now we are manually setting it to true or false depending on the context. So you don't want it to play multiple times over the same button. So we're saying single here, and we have to reset it to false here if it has already been played before we are allowed to play it again. You could remove this if you want to. It does help make everything just work fine. Now go, as you can see, you can now go over all of them, and you can do it multiple times. Cool. And as for the menu state, next up, let's go to the game state. And all we need to do here is just where we create this asteroid, we can just also pass in sfx for sound effect, because the asteroids will also have sound effects for once they explode. And before we go asteroids, we can go player, which should be inside of objects and player. And first we can take in sound effects, and then first here with the shoot laser, I believe, because that's when we want to play a shoot laser sound effect, we can just go sfx play fx and then just the laser. And since we're not passing anything in, if we go here to sfx, that means it will stop the effect if it's currently playing and then start replaying it. So let's run that and hope it works. As you can see, now if I were to spam the button, you'll notice it just keeps on playing. Because the sound effect is so short, you don't actually hear the sound effect getting cut in half, basically. So if you spam it, you're not going to hear that sound effect being cut in half, which it is currently actually doing. Next up, we can go back to player and just go to move player. And in here where we say if self.thrusting, so if we're currently thrusting the player forward, we want to go here and just say sfx play fx. I want to say specify the thruster and then slow. And slow, of course, if we go here to slow, it will just check if the effect is not currently being played, then it will just start playing the effect. Alright. And we can do the same here at the bottom, but now we can just say if we're not currently thrusting ourselves forward, sfx stop fx thruster. Cool. Let's see if that works. Oh, that's weird. Let's try it again. So at 30 we're trying to index a nil value. So right here. Okay, so thruster seems to be a nil value. Also, it seems we haven't taken an sfx here in game, so you can just also take that. And let's see here. You know what? I spelt incorrectly. There we go. Now it should work. Okay. Alright, you'll notice every time we now thrust, it makes a nice sound, and it stops once we stop pressing the W key. Cool. Then last but not least, we can go to Asteroids. We can go to the top, we can take in sound effects. Then we want to play an effect once we destroy the asteroid. So in the destroy function, once here, when we resize and whatnot, we can just pass in the sound effects as well because we're creating new asteroids. And then at the end, before the remove, we can just say SFX, play FX, and then we can just say asteroid explosion. Then if we run it and we shoot an asteroid, we should hear and there we go. So now you hear that every time you shoot an asteroid. And just like that, we added sound to our game. And believe it or not, that actually took me a whole day to implement on my own. Just because we did it pretty fast doesn't necessarily mean it was very fast. Anyhow, and that is the end of the Love2D crash course. Thank you all for watching. It was a very fun experience doing this with all of you. Now, before we go, I might want to give you a little bit extra homework if you're up for the challenge. You might want to make this on the background to make it look cool, have the asteroids be flying in the background. Wouldn't that be cool if you're here in the menu state and it does that? Alright, and if we go to new game, you might want asteroids to explode when they hit each other. Wouldn't that be cool as well? But then, of course, the player score doesn't necessarily have to increase, but it could be pretty neat if two asteroids were to hit each other and then explode into more asteroids. And yeah, that's about it. You can also try porting the game to Android, which I have not really tried, but it would be a pretty difficult challenge, and if you get it right, then you can make Android games for yourself and for your friends. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed following along in this course, and I will see you all again in the next tutorial, whatever that may be.